Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is what happens next to the SNP and will they see out the current term of Parliament. Now, if you want to support the channel, you can become a member. You can subscribe, that's free, or the easiest thing to do is just click the thumbs up button at the bottom of the screen for any video you see. That does wonders for the reach, so thanks for those who do that. Now, the SNP just want to have a look at what's probably going to happen and what could happen to them as they try to stumble their way through the remainder of this term in government. And I don't think they're going to manage it, to be perfectly honest with you. What's happened, obviously, unless you live in the moon or have been under a rock for some time, you'll understand Humza stood down after ditching the Greens, patting them out of government, left the SNP in a minority government, and Swinney's became the new First Minister. That was voted on this week in Parliament. So what he's done, he's trying to be more attractive to the opposition, which I find hilarious because suddenly they've now found a conscience and they want to talk to other people. He's making some outrageous comments. One of them being, a personal highlight of mine was, he is quite happy to talk to the Unionist parties as long as they put constitutional questions in the back burner. Well, by default then, you wouldn't be a unionist and you wouldn't be talking to them. So the whole suggestion I found absolutely crazy and bizarre, particularly from a party who have failed to put the independence question in the back burner as they've tried to govern Scotland since the referendum in 2014. The country's went backwards because they have never been able to stop talking about independence. And as far as I'm concerned, they've been telling lies and trying to lead those who want independence up a garden path because they really don't have a clue how to get it. But they need these people to vote for them because no unionist will ever vote for SNP. Why would you? By default. And they need to keep those who do want independence on side. So for 10 years, they've just blathered on about nonsense and they don't actually have any plan on how to achieve their goal of independence. So, you know, they've never taken independence off the table, but unionists have to take protecting the union off the table or Swinney's not going to talk to them. That's just a bizarre notion. They have installed Swinney Forbes as the Deputy First Minister. Now that's already attracting outrage from two different people publicly, two different groups of people publicly, and I would imagine one group privately. That's already attracting some real horrific comments from some of their supporters and activists who really can't understand why the party's coming away from being, in my opinion, far left and in their opinion to the left and becoming more central. Some of their activists are already claiming that they're turning far right, which is just a bizarre notion, but they seem a bit upset and that's been triggered by Swinney Forbes' announcement that she's the Deputy First Minister. Another thing that has triggered some of them and will trigger more of them when the penny drops is he has axed the Minister in charge of independence. I can't remember the name that he gave that ministerial role. Was it the Minister for Independence or some nonsense like that? That's been axed from the cabinet they announced last night. So that'll trigger some. They'll be like, well, what is the point? So that'll go against them. The Harvey from the Greens, he's already come out with some crazy statements about how they better not cancel any of the work that was done during the Butte House Agreement. And what he means by that is the sort of climate change stuff, but actually more important to him, which I find bizarre for a guy in the Green Party, is the gender recognition stuff and all this trans, noise created by the Cass report. So that seems really important to him, and more important than some of the climate stuff, which is just beggars belief when he's actually the co-leader of the Green Party. Gender issues seem more higher on his priority list, which is a bit bizarre. So there's a few folk getting triggered already by some of the announcements that's been made. Now, let's just remind ourselves that for the Scottish Government to get anything through Parliament, they will need an ally, at least one, from the opposition. But the most important thing they need to get through is a budget. Because as a government, if you fail to get your budget passed and put through Parliament, which is normally easy when you're the majority, because most of your party, if not all, would vote for your budget. But if you cannot get a budget through, that automatically kicks in an election. You are finished as a government, and it would trigger an election. So there's a possibility of that if they don't get the Greens or Alba, most likely candidates on side. And the Alba thing looks as if it's dead and buried, because that cost Humsey's job, but looks at it. He had the audacity to possibly do a deal with Ash Regan, who is the only MSP for a party run by Alex Salmond. So there seems some in the SNP hierarchy that do not want deals done with Alba. So they would need to get a budget accepted by somebody else, and the somebody else would more likely be the Greens. But the Greens, they don't seem too happy just now. Now, what could happen is if at any time the SNP seem to be steering away from any of their climate or gender stuff that the Greens quite liked, they might stop supporting them. And if that was to happen, then anybody calling another vote of no confidence would surely get the Greens on side, and we could see the government falling at that point. So I think statistically, I would be shocked and stunned if this SNP government managed to get to the end of the term. I think they're going to fall at budget, or they're going to fall with vote of no confidence when they lose support of the Greens. And then it would just be down to whoever in the opposition benches fancied calling a vote of no confidence this time. But I think that's what's going to happen, and that's not based on any inside knowledge. That's just based on applying common sense and logic and looking at the pack of cards as it's landed on the table, all spread out madness, right? So they've now got a more central, in some people's eyes, a right wing deputy First Minister. They've done away with the ministerial role looking after independence. The Greens are scared that Kate Forbes might drag them out of some of the more cuddly stuff. But Kate Forbes did make a statement yesterday saying that she understood that ministers had to basically toe the party line. But that party line might be moving as well. So I don't see how it's possible that they could stay in government for the full remaining term of the government without falling foul of Harvey and his crackpots. So your Tories, your Labour, your Lib Dems, they just need to sit back and wait for the right time. And the minute it happens, go. Now, what could they do? Well, I'll tell you what they could do. They could start going to First Minister's questions and posing some serious questions about the environment, and posing some serious questions about gender, and push them into a corner and get them to make decisions about those two topics. If you were Alba, you could start pushing them into a corner about the independence question. And the minute they say something stupid or something, just tell the truth, they could really unfold and government could fall. And I just genuinely cannot see. I tried to consider all the options here when you're looking at how the cards have fell, and I can't see a single one that gets them through to the end of the term, because they would need to keep so many people happy. And some of the parties that they could keep happy, like Alba, that would be, think, the easiest one, because they're an independence party. The hierarchy in the SNP seem hell-bent on doing nothing to appease Alba, and certainly don't want to rely on them or their support to keep them in power. So the only option open to them is the Greens. So if I was Sarwar, or if I was Douglas Ross, or if I was, sorry, the guy's name, Cole Hamilton Cole, I do beg your pardon, the Lib Dem guy, then every time there was an opportunity, I would be putting some right juicy questions to them that could potentially put off the Greens. And as soon as Harvey has another meltdown in Parliament, because that will happen in the remainder of the term of the Parliament, just call a vote of no confidence and get shot off. And I can see that being the most likely outcome of this decrepit SNP. And a lot of people think they played smart over the last week or two. I don't see it. I think they're in a worse position today than they were a month ago. And it's all their own doing, which is fantastic. So, enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you're not already done so, please consider subscribing. And if you enjoyed the video, I thank you for tuning in. As I say, just get the thumbs up and it'll help spread the word. But most importantly of all, unless you're John Swinney, his cabinet, or the ever decreasing cult members within the SNP membership, everybody else have a great day. Cheery bye now.